across Texas, scanning vehicles and uploading their information into a surveillance database. We'll discuss the backlash behind these cameras and more of today's top headlines. I'm Michael Adkison.
And I'm guest host Doug Miller. We'll also discuss a Supreme Court ruling that's putting Haitians living legally in Houston at risk.
Plus, University of Houston professor Dr. Lou Gao explains how artificial intelligence is helping researchers improve traffic safety across Texas.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Linda Kenyon. The Senate Judiciary Committee has voted 12-10 to advance Todd Blanche's nomination for Attorney General. The nomination now goes to the full Senate. Michigan Democrats are voting today for an open Senate seat that could signal the future direction of the party and possibly shape the battle of control of the chamber this fall. NPR's Sam Gringlas reports the primary is seen as a test of how further left-leaning candidates looking to disrupt the status quo will fare in a swing state.
Epidemiologist Abdul El-Sayed has the backing of Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who won the Michigan primary in 2016. El-Sayed has made criticism of corporate money in politics central.
The problem too often with the Democratic Party is that we have an instinct to say the right thing, but we're bought off by the people who are on the side of doing the wrong thing.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens got late endorsements from Michigan heavyweights like Governor Gretchen Whitmer and retiring Senator Gary Peters.
You know, I'm just beating MAGA 4 times in my congressional races, and I'm passing laws, and I'm doing damn good work.
Whoever wins will face former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers this fall. Sam Gringlas, NPR News, Farmington Hills, Michigan.
Key mediators for the Gaza ceasefire are accusing Israel of undermining the next phase of President Trump's peace plan after a meeting between Israel and an envoy from the Board of Peace. Hamas says it remains committed to the agreement, but is waiting for clarification from mediators. NPR's Anas Baba reports.
In a joint statement, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey condemned what they called ongoing Israeli violations in Gaza, including strikes on health facilities and the killing of civilians. The mediators said the violations threaten efforts to move into the second phase of the ceasefire agreement, days after Trump said that Hamas agreed to the roadmap, including weapons decommissioning. Hamas has previously declared that Mladenov is adopting the Israeli perspective, though the group stated that it's still waiting for an official response from the mediators regarding the specifics of the agreement. The statements come amid ongoing disagreements over how to implement the next stage of Trump's Gaza plan. Anas Baba, NPR News, Gaza.
Health officials in Michigan say 2 people have died as part of an outbreak of the foodborne illness cyclosporiasis. Kate Wells reports from Michigan.
Health officials are also stressing that cyclosporiasis is not generally life-threatening, that these kinds of deaths are rare. We do want to be careful, though, at this point, because we just don't know to what degree cyclosporiasis was a factor in these deaths. But we are talking about an illness here that, if it is not treated, it can be really prolonged. It can recur after it seems like it's over. And, of course, the biggest impact are on the most vulnerable people.
Officials say the 2 people who died had underlying health conditions. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Shelby Rose. Governor Greg Abbott has paused data centers' ability to connect to the Texas power grid until state regulators complete a thorough audit of these facilities' energy and water usage. News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us more.
The directive is the latest correspondence between the governor and the state's energy agencies as they grapple with how to regulate the fastest-growing data center market in the country. And it comes as data centers have faced increasing public scrutiny across the political spectrum. Abbott has directed the Public Utility Commission of Texas and ERCOT, the state's electric grid manager, to collect information on all data centers looking to join the grid before any of these projects can connect. It's unclear how long the audit could take. I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
A federal judge has ruled one of the key witnesses to the shooting death of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo by ICE agents can remain free for now. District Judge Keith Ellison ruled that Jose Trinidad Rojas Pliego will not be re-detained while an appeal by the federal government plays out in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Rojas Pliego was a passenger in the van when Salgado Araujo was fatally shot by an ICE agent in July and has disputed the government's claim he weaponized his vehicle. The two additional witnesses, they're still in ICE detention in Conroe, which includes Salgado Araujo's brother, and they have filed similar petitions for their release from detention. A new study indicates an average of 2 people die in traffic crashes every day in the 13-county Houston-Galveston region. To curb the fatalities, the Houston-Galveston Area Council is working on a safety action plan. Kareem Baugh is the HCAC's senior project coordinator.
So the Safety Action Plan is more than just a document. It outlines recommendations. It looks at data-driven analysis. It looks at where our injuries are happening. We have an identified high injury network, and that guides us as to where improvements are most needed.
And the Astros fell to the Blue Jays last night 3-1, shortly after acquiring Toronto's outfielder Dalton Varsho in exchange for Spencer Getty at the trade deadline. I'm Shelby Rose, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston.
Welcome to Hello Houston, and in case you can't tell by the sultry sounds of my voice, I am not Ernie Manous. Ernie has vacation for the week. He has been working hard, doing double time over the summer as we've been finding new guest hosts, new opportunities for him, and so he is taking some well-deserved rest. And I'm Michael Adkison, Houston Public Media reporter, filling in for him, and now joining me in the guest seat is Doug Miller, the longtime Houston veteran to the journalism industry. Doug, welcome back to Hello Houston, I should say.
Well, it's wonderful to be here again, but so strange not to have Ernie in the studio. This is Ernie Manous's home plate here.
Right.
Yeah.
We're both guest hosts we've been filling in, and
right.
I joked earlier, I was like, maybe 2 guest hosts will be the equivalent of Ernie's persona and personality. We can only hope, I suppose.
I don't. That's a big personality. Those are not boots I want to fill.
We're going to do what we can. No,
Right.
Ernie's great. We're happy to give him some well-deserved rest. So Doug and I are going to be working today and another day this week, and we're also going to have a couple other guest hosts, and Ernie will be back next week. But we are happy to take the reins from him.
I think I met somebody from HR, the elevator here. I think he's got about 48 weeks of vacation time coming to him. So got a feeling I'm getting a phone call.
48 weeks. That's so he can take the whole next year. No, he wouldn't do that. He just loves Hello Houston too much. That's the thing. He really can't take that time off. He needs to be here. It's like part of him. No, we're happy to be here. We're happy to fill in for him, and we're happy to have Doug here joining us through our first run of the show without Ernie. I think what's been interesting, not to keep talking about the inside baseball of Hello Houston, is I think this is the first time that Hello Houston has done shows without an established host here. That in the past, when we had Frank and Celeste, that if one person was out, they could fill in with just the 2 of them. But I think this is the first time that none of the actual hosts are here. So we're making history today, Doug.
Yeah, this is going to be like the Astros in about 2001. When things weren't going so well. We'll see what happens here.
We'll see what happens. No, we're going to do great. But Doug, as always, guest host. Let me keep saying I feel strange that I'm now in Ernie seat. I'm usually where you are, so I'll have you read the headlines for us.
Well, yes, indeed. First of all, let's go to a story that's been stirring up a great deal of discussion. Flock cameras and similar license plate readers have been misused by more than 50 rogue law enforcement officers across the nation who, in some cases, stalked women without their consent. That's according to an investigation conducted and just published by the Washington Post. Just last week, a Baytown police officer resigned in the wake of an investigation into his alleged misuse of the city's flock cameras. Flock reportedly has more than 120,000 of these shoebox-sized cameras scanning the roads in more than 6,000 communities, recording about 20 billion plate scans every month. The Waco Bridge, a nonprofit news organization backed by the Texas Tribune, reports that advocacy groups have been tracking camera positions across Texas. They estimate there are more than 10,000 of these cameras in our state, with several thousand of them concentrated right here in the Houston area. Aided by artificial intelligence, the license plate numbers and other information on vehicles are uploaded to a vast database that individual police officers can instantaneously access through the Internet. Now, law enforcement officers hail these license plate reading cameras as an invaluable tool, even a game changer that has led to quick arrests of sometimes violent criminals. But there is a growing backlash. A congressman is proposing federal legislation that would require police to obtain warrants before accessing flock camera data. Organized opponents have launched websites with maps showing the exact locations of flock cameras across the nation. And vandals are on the attack, cutting down flock camera poles near at least 8 intersections right here in Houston. So this is touching a nerve. So we'd like to hear what you think about flock cameras. Do you have any in your neighborhood? You've seen them around town probably. What are your thoughts on flock cameras? Give us a call. Give us a text at 713-440-8870. Michael, full disclosure here, this story literally hits close to home for me. Somebody sawed down 4 flock cameras right in my neighborhood a few days ago. So this is happening. Someone's organizing this. All of these cameras are cut down in a similar fashion, exactly 18 inches off the ground with what appears to be a saw, not completely cut off, bent over so that they can fall on their own. There's some sort of organization to this campaign.
Yeah, I've certainly heard on whispers on social media of people encouraging folks to go out and cut down flock cameras because for them, it is this 1984-esque, surveillance system that can't be trusted. And the use of artificial intelligence, that obviously that's a great concern of where is that data going, what's being done with that information. And certainly that vandalism is something that I've heard people say, yeah, here's how you do it. Here's how you'd go about it. Here's the seamless way to get rid of a flock camera, essentially.
It made me wonder for a while where all of this started, why suddenly we're hearing a great deal of opposition to cameras out in public, these surveillance cameras. I recall back in, I think it was 1995, I did a story about what I believe was the first use of these surveillance cameras in a metropolitan area by a police department. It was Baltimore. They put them out there, and their explanation, their argument for them is, we're simply putting cameras up, and if we could put a police officer on each of these corners, that would be a wonderful thing. We can't do that. So what we've got is a bunch of cameras, and we got a cop sitting inside a room looking at the monitors, and if there's any kind of a problem, we can quickly dispatch an officer to that area. So these things have been out there to some extent for 30 or so years.
Sure.
But now, with AI and with a lot of more focus on what giant technology companies are doing with our data, that has really put a focus on this. I think also the activism against data centers may be contributing to it as well.
Right. We were talking about that before the year, that I from my personal experience talking about data centers, I feel like it was this thing that a couple years ago there were these whispers about these buildings that were opening up and they consumed a lot of energy, but that wasn't really part of this greater conversation. And now I think you look at politics these days, you have we're going to talk about it a little bit later, so not to spoil it, but Greg Abbott ordering a complete audit of all data centers and all their consumption in the state of Texas, that it is now unavoidable. And I feel like that's generally how flock cameras are trending, that it's starting to pick up. It's starting to become this conversation point that I think a lot of politicians are having to really reconcile of what they believe. Do they believe more so in the public safety aspect of them, or is it more the security and the privacy of and the concerns that these pose?
Elected officials are really concerned about this. I can tell you I talked to someone who works for a local elected official who was called upon to comment upon this. And generally, I mean, they can't quite figure out, many of them, how to respond to it. Because obviously a lot of privacy concerns. But on the other hand, law enforcement, cops will tell you this is an extraordinary tool. Right. Just the other day, I was watching NBC Nightly News. They had a little story on about a woman who parked her car. She was a DoorDash delivery woman. Stopped her car, went to a door to drop off the meal, had her 2-year-old daughter in the car. Someone ran into the car, drove off with the car. It's terrifying, of course. The 911 call was a frightening thing to listen to. But the police officer who responded to the scene immediately was able to pull out his iPhone, I think it was, ask for a license plate number, plugs it in, and he's able to figure out exactly where it is. Cops move in, they rescue the 2-year-old girl.
Wow.
So there are stories like that you can hear about from law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
And it has been a game changer for many in law enforcement.
Yeah, the story that came to my mind is earlier this year. It made quite a few headlines, so I'm sure many people have heard about this. But there were a couple of people in Austin who sort of did these, not quite hit and runs, but they would shoot their gun kind of at random and then drive to somewhere else, shoot their gun at random, drive to somewhere else. And they did this for a day, so much so that Austin had a shelter in place for that afternoon when they realized this is the same group of people that are doing this essentially. Austin had canceled their flock camera or had ended their flock camera contract, so they did not have flock cameras. These two individuals then drove into the next town over, Manor, which did have flock cameras, and it was in Manor that they were able to track these guys down and then ultimately arrest them. Right. And that became a big conversation in Central Texas of, flock. When I knew that we were going to talk about flock, I pulled up their Facebook post. They made this big point of saying it was Manor that caught these people, not Austin, because Manor still has flock cameras. Right, so it is this balance of public safety. It's, do you want, and I think the fact that Flock is a private company that's pushing this, is notable too, in the sense that they're saying, you know what, if you want to catch these guys, you better use our cameras. You better, consider having our services in your area, because Austin couldn't do this. Manor could, essentially.
I'd like to hear if there's anyone out there right now who's got flock cameras in their neighborhood. We'd like to hear from you. Give us a call at 713-440-8870. There was a big debate within my own neighborhood about whether we should adopt these flock cameras. They are not cheap. Okay, and the other aspect of it is there's people questioning just how effective they are in terms of stopping. The main concern a neighborhood has is home burglaries. So, all right, let's say you can see a license plate driving into a certain neighborhood. What are the odds that the police department, HPD, we got like a 5% clearance rate on burglaries. They've got bigger fish to fry than burglaries. What are the odds they're going to go check that and see if they can find a license plate? And the crooks are smart enough to know to steal license plates and use those when they're committing crimes. Let's face it, crooks have gotten to the point where they know to wear hoodies when they commit crimes because they know there are cameras everywhere. So I question how effective they are in terms of stopping crimes in an individual neighborhood, really. In terms of a broader law enforcement perspective, you can see why a city police force or a state police force would want these, because they can use it very, very quickly in instances like the one we just spoke about.
Yeah. 713-440-8870. That is the number to call or text if you want to let us know your thoughts. We got one text from a resident who says, I served on a grand jury last year, and flock camera evidence was very usable in evaluating cases. I can see how the information could be misused, so I like the idea of needing a warrant to access it. Earl Grey T-Cat writes on our YouTube, the difference is that Flock is not owned by police. Flock isn't beholden to anyone but stockholders. That's kind of what we were getting at earlier, saying that this is a private company, essentially, that, they can operate however they want. And if a city or an entity or a police department decides to go in a contract, they make the terms of the contract, but then they don't respond to the taxpayers. They don't respond to the people of the community.
I think the other big difference is the instantaneous nature of the access for police officers to this information. Yeah. Individual police officers can just go online and find a car. That's what's led to the cases that the Washington Post has reported on. man, a cop tracking his ex-girlfriend, those sort of cases. And, that's what, to me, that's the game changer here. It's how quickly police officers, for better or for worse, how quickly police officers can access information, can find individuals driving specific vehicles.
It almost sounds like Minority Report of this idea of we can get to crimes quicker than ever before. It almost sounds too good to be true. And I certainly, to the point of the person who texted saying that they served on a grand jury last year where flock evidence was used, I can certainly see how that would make your job so much easier.
Sure.
That you don't have to do as much detective work, essentially. You really can just rely on the cameras and the artificial intelligence that tells you essentially here's the car, here's the person. Have at it, essentially.
Right. I think it's interesting. I heard a podcast a couple of weeks ago. The TED Talk of the day, the TED Talk Daily, was from the CEO of Flock, who was giving examples such as the one we just heard, which gave an example in which a young girl was kidnapped, and they were able to quickly find her as a result of that. There is definitely a trade-off in terms of privacy, though.
Oh, certainly. It makes me think of how many Elizabeth Smarts or J.C. DeGards could we avoid by having flock cameras? That is, it is.
Right.
We keep saying it's a trade-off.
Although I'm wary. I'll tell you why I'm wary when I hear examples like that. The argument that seems to always be presented is protect the children. And quite often that's I think a dangerous road to go down. I think of back when the anti-gay movement was going on, Anita Bryant back in the 70s. It was about protecting the children.
Yeah.
So when I hear that, I stand back. It raises my eyebrows a bit. It arches my eyebrows because I've seen that argument used for not so good purposes.
Yeah. 713-440-8870. That's the number to call. Moving on to another story that's making a lot of attention. A recent Texas state ban on several forms of THC, the main intoxicating component in cannabis, is already becoming an issue in this year's U.S. Senate election. That ban took effect on Friday. State Rep James Tallarico, who is the Democratic Senate nominee, called the ban a gift to the cartels in a Monday statement, and he said the state is, quote, going back to the days of prohibition, 7 years after the Texas legislature had legalized hemp. This ban is a result of that Texas Supreme Court ruling earlier this year that permits the state's Department of Health Services to reclassify most types of hemp-derived THC as a Schedule I drug, making it illegal to sell and possess in the state. Tallarico argued the ban would actually not help communities, but rather close legal small businesses and drive the trade back to the black market. Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is the Republican nominee for Senate, did not return a request for comment from my colleague Andrew Schneider, who reported this story. But Paxton has taken a strong stance in the past against decriminalizing marijuana and had sued several states in the past and counties that had worked toward doing so. What are your thoughts on Tallarico and Paxton's stances on marijuana and THC? This is one of those issues that I think everyone's got an opinion on. Give us a call or text at 713-440-8870. Doug, I was in the legislature covering politics when all this was going down, and if you would have told me that this is going to be the issue that that sort of drew a line in the sand and has really gotten as much attention that it had, I would have been shocked. There are so many bigger fish to fry, it almost seems, than this, but here we are.
Yeah, it's the hot button issue again, and that's what seems to drive things. I mean, you got just some sort of hot button issue that will stir people up and so on. It's interesting. The last polling numbers I've seen on this have been pretty consistent. That about 3/4. Last poll I saw, 75% of Texans support legalized marijuana, and 63% of Republicans. And I don't recall what poll that was, but that struck me that so many Republicans, this used to be an easy issue to jump onto. Certainly Republicans would have opposed legalizing marijuana, any sort of loosening of restrictions on THC, whatever. That was a third rail. Don't touch that one. Democrats, not so much. You kind of, Now, it's interesting. Paxton coming down to this. When he's in a very tight race for the U.S. Senate seat, I'm not sure this is going to fly so well with Republicans. But the polling indicates most Republicans, they're not all that worked up over marijuana. And you propose this, you're gonna. I guess so the hardcore, it'll stir up the base a little bit, but I don't know that most Republicans even care about it any longer. I just don't see the excitement over this issue that I once did.
Yeah, and one of the biggest groups that was opposed to the THC ban, I'll make a note of, was veterans. That there were a lot of veterans advocacy groups who were at the Capitol lobbying against this, saying that it was not going to do good for the folks who had served in the armed forces and needed medical marijuana. So let us know your thoughts, 713-440-8870. We've got a stacked show ahead. Coming up, we're going to talk about the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on temporary protected status, what it could mean for some prominent Houston communities. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Tio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
Houston Public Media, you'll get access to PBS Passport that lets you watch your favorite programs anytime you want. Support the programs you love and enjoy them on your own schedule with PBS Passport. Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
I'm Scott Tong from Public Radio's midday news magazine Here and Now. We bring you all the news that happens between the morning headlines and the afternoon wrap-up, plus conversations with authors and artists, stories that affect you, maybe a story about you. So join us for NPR's midday news magazine Here and Now.
It's coming up today at 1 o'clock.
Open caskets used to be fairly standard at funerals, but we're losing the artists who make that possible.
For a number of reasons, restorative artistry is becoming devalued.
The culture and economics of morticians and why their trade is quickly going out of fashion. That's next time on Think.
Listen to Think. It's on tonight at 11 o'clock.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Support comes from the Houston Museum of Natural Science in Herman Park, featuring exhibits on dinosaurs, butterflies, stars, and ancient cultures, along with the Burke Baker Planetarium and Cockrell Butterfly Center. More at hmns.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Michael Adkison and Doug Miller.
A U.S. Supreme Court decision, Mullen versus Doe, is reshaping the future of temporary protected status, TPS, for hundreds of thousands of immigrants across the country, including here in Houston. In a 6-3 ruling, the High Court determined the president has broad authority to end TPS designations and that those decisions are largely beyond judicial review. That clears the way for the Trump administration to revoke protections for Haitian and Syrian nationals, and it sets a precedent that could affect TPS holders from other countries. For Houston, well, this is home to one of the nation's largest black immigrant populations, and advocates here warn that the decision could put thousands of families at risk of losing work authorization, at facing deportation, being separated from their communities. Well, joining us now to tell us more about this ruling and its impacts here in Houston are Zenobia Lai, the Executive Director of Houston Immigration Legal Services, and James Pierre, the co-founder and vice chairman of Houston Haitians United. Zenobia, James, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Can you give me a sense of how many Haitians, individuals and families in the Houston area living here on temporary protected statuses, and what will happen to them if their status is removed? James, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah. So the Houston Haitian community has been in the Houston area since the 1970s. And just, recently with the earthquake that happened in 2010, we had more of our Haitian immigrants coming into Houston on temporary protected status. Our estimate, there's the 30,000 plus Haitians in the Houston area, and we believe at least 10,000 to maybe 5,000 TPS holders.
All right. So the this is a time, no doubt, of intense anxiety even fear for Haitians living in Houston under TPS. I wonder, Zenobia, can you share with us a story, obviously attorney-client privilege applies here, but without naming names, that illustrates what a Houston-based Haitian family is facing this week when they suddenly lose the right to live and to work here?
Yeah, I think that applies to a lot of holders of temporary protected status in the greater Houston area. Of course, the case directly affects Syrians and Haitians. And as James mentions, we probably have 5,000 to 10,000 Haitians in greater Houston that hold TPS status. What that means is that while the implementation has not officially taken place yet because we're waiting for a procedural issue from the Supreme Court to hand down to the lower courts. What that means is that, thousands of Haitian TPS will expect to lose their ability to legally work in the United States. And, we, as a community, we rely on immigrants, Haitian immigrants included, to provide healthcare services, and a lot of businesses rely on them. And losing work authorization means that they're also going to lose their job. And as James mentioned earlier, the Haitian community has been established in the greater Houston area, especially since 2010 earthquake, which means that they are likely to have children that are born in the United States who are U.S. citizens. And as the parents are at risk of losing their temporary protected status, the children could, face family separation, that the parents may be, put in removal proceeding and eventually removed from the United States and deported back to Haiti. So there are great concerns for the children of these families. What is going to happen to them? Who is going to provide the care? And there's a humanitarian impact certainly, and there's also great economic impact on our community as a whole.
Well, we'll touch on the economic impact shortly, but I want to ask you I want to burrow in a bit on Zenobia on this issue of separation of families. How are some of the clients that you were talking to navigating this choice between separating their families or moving their families back into the, let's be blunt, chaos that is now prevalent in Haiti? Oh, we lost Zenobia there. We're having Zenobia having a problem with your audio there. Let's see. Can we do something about it? Looks like we'll work on that. I don't know. James, can you tackle that question? Have you talked to some people who talk to us about how families are dealing with this issue of do you leave your family behind? Do you return on your own? Do you bring your children with you?
Yeah. As a parent myself, I can tell you absolutely not. That's the main thing. A lot of the migrants that came here in 2021, there was a surge at the border down there in Del Rio. A lot of them came, expecting children. They were pregnant, and so those children were born here, and they're probably still 2 to 3 years old, and they're facing the pressure of having to move back to Haiti. Now, there's a lot being said about the status being revoked, but Haiti right now is a level 4 risk country, right, on the State Department website. Sure. So the argument was, okay, they can go back home, but we're sending them back home to somewhere where you wouldn't even send American citizens. Yeah. And so that's the harsh reality of what the parents who are here on TPS are facing right now, who have children, who are in the school system, who are learning, who are being part of our community. They ultimately have to make that decision.
Right.
That was something I was going to mention, is that Haiti right now, obviously the earthquake is what most people think of when they think of the state of things back home, but they've gone through a period of civil unrest in the last 5 years. They've also had gang violence, that it's not a safe place to be right now for a lot of folks. That is kind of the whole point of the temporary protected status, is to make sure that you feel safe where you're going. What are the options, I suppose, for someone who is losing this TPS status? Do you go back home? Do you stay? What if I was facing this, what would I be reconciling with right now?
Well, I mean, I would put myself in their shoes. Being a Haitian American, both of my parents were born in Haiti. They came to the United States and raised my brothers here with myself. And I've been to Haiti. I've seen Haiti. And I haven't been able to go back to Haiti and visit because of what's going on there. So you're putting people between a rock and a hard place, right? And they really don't have a great choice, because you can face certain death in Haiti if you leave, but then you could possibly face certain death here with the way that ICE is conducting these deportations. And then there's a humanitarian aspect to it, and then there's also a humiliation aspect to it. Right now, I saw the other day that the migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are being fitted with ankle monitors. That's pretty embarrassing to go in to check in with your immigration status, and then you have a ankle monitor put on your on your ankle. I don't know what the purpose of that would be, but I think that the Haitian people are doing their best to comply, check in, and do what they need to do with immigration services.
So, Zenobia, what legal options do these folks have? Do they have any options? What do you tell them when they come into your office so desperate and seeking advice?
Well, I would imagine that quite a few of them actually have pending. But right now, the asylum path is also being narrowed every day, basically, with the Board of Immigration Appeal kind of constricting the grounds of asylum. So that doesn't look very promising. And, we have very few paths for people to gain lawful permanent immigration status. The biggest, path would be through family petition. And many Haitians may not have children who are born in the United States who are age 21 or over that would make them eligible to petition for their parents. Hopefully they may have siblings who are U.S. citizens that can petition for them. But we are looking at, a 13 to 14-year wait in order for a visa to be available. If they have, parents who are U.S. citizen, the parents can also petition for them. But, for older individuals who are married with children, that wait is also 10 years plus. So there are not very good options. And the second path would be based on employment, depends on their education and training. They may have employer who would be willing to petition for them. So that is also another narrow path. And there are really not a whole lot of option available. And, the current situation affecting TPS holders, we have about 1.4 million people around the country that are TPS holder from 17 countries. The reason why, there is no path for people to regularize their status, the TPS is temporary. There is no direct connection for people to be able to get permanent immigration status. And we have not had a comprehensive kind of positive immigration reform since 1986. That's 40 years ago. So, we really need to call on Congress to do their job. This is not, TPS holders' fault that they end up have nowhere to regularize status. It's because we have a system that creates no path for people to regularize the status. And for many TPS holders, they may have been here for over a decade, such as the Haitians. Syrians also over a decade. And, right now we have only 4 out of the 17 countries whose TPS have not been terminated or being litigated in court. But with this Supreme Court decision, basically, we are seeing a green light, for TPS termination to be effective for these other 13 countries. The other 4 countries, the TPS redetermination are up for renewal within the next few months. So, this Supreme Court decision affects, of course, directly the Haitians and the Syrian TPS holders, but it affects the other 1 million people who are currently in TPS status as well. So the implication on our community is huge. And Texas is the second, has the second largest TPS holder population, about 140,000 people. So the implication is huge for our community.
Zenobia, you touched on something a moment ago I'd like to ask you about. We're talking about a lot of people who fled from Haiti to Houston who have since found jobs and have integrated into our city's culture, but also our city's economy. So this is going to have an impact on our city's workforce. Do you have a sense of which industries or sectors of our economy will feel the greatest impact from losing these workers?
Name at least two: the healthcare sector and also the caregiver that provide daycare or elder care to our family members, and also hospitality, restaurant. Many of them, work in the restaurant business. So these are, the top, three that are particularly affected by the impact on the Haitian community.
All right.
Zenobia, question for you. I know we talked about the pathway to permanent legal status not particularly being an option for people with TPS. For the folks who are coming to your office and are looking for help, what about the legal process for these affected groups is different than, say, a Latino who doesn't have permanent legal status? That community is facing a lot of fear from ICE and just detentions. How is the process different for people with TPS who are now losing that?
Different, right? The difference is when someone has TPS protection, they are lawfully allowed to be in the United States. They have work authorization. Whereas for a lot of Latinos who are in our community, they are also unauthorized immigrants, but they would not have work authorization. But both are at risk of encountering ICE on the road, and both are at risk of being detained and be put in the deportation system.
James, have you heard about people in Houston, Haitians in Houston, that have faced that sort of fear from ICE or arrest from ICE, the way that we have heard from a lot of folks in the Latino community?
Well, honestly, for the past year, it's been in limbo, so, there are people who are fearful. There was a short reprieve for a little bit where there was a block, but now, we're back at it again. So a lot of the community are fearful. They're not, just going to step out because they don't know what's going on. And, the thing with Houston Haitians United, we're looking for solidarity. We're looking for solutions and safety. And, we just don't want another situation where, a TPS holder or another immigrant is shot dead in the street. We just want to make sure that there is some kind of organization to this. There's a solution. Right now, we just feel like there's just disorganized and there's no solution that's really given. It's just, take $2,600 and a plane ticket and leave, and, I would, want, our policymakers to, kind of think about this a little bit longer and, find out a safe solution for everyone, because it's just not as simple as get on a plane with $2,600 and go to Port-au-Prince. You get on a plane with $2,600, you go to Port-au-Prince, the gangs are right outside of the airport. They're looking, and so if you're not hiding your face, they know you have $2,600 on you. You're a target now. So that's not safe. And we're just asking for policymakers and this administration to rethink these things, to make these things a lot more feasible and safe for the migrants.
Give us a greater sense of what it would be like for someone to land at that airport in Port-au-Prince right now. What is it like in Haiti right now? And what would it mean for someone living and working in Houston to have to suddenly pick up everything and go there? What would they encounter?
Yeah, so there is a lot of things, right? There are two airports in Haiti. There's one in Cap Haitian, which is in the north, and then there's the main international airport in Port-au-Prince. The main international airport in Port-au-Prince is surrounded by gang neighborhoods. There's not really many routes that you can go through. And on any given day, the one route that you can go through may be stopped by gangs at any day, right? So there is a difficulty in getting to certain different areas in Haiti because not everybody who's here on TPS is from Port-au-Prince. And so if you fly into Port-au-Prince and you can't get to, Jeremy or Jacmel, you're in a situation and you're in a neighborhood that you're unfamiliar with, right? And, people are watching, and people are opportunists. They're going to definitely, spot you. So it's not very safe at all. And I think that in this administration's mind, it's as simple as just getting on a plane and going. It's not.
James Pierre is the co-founder and vice chairman of Houston Haitians United, and Zenobia Lai is the executive director of Houston Immigration Legal Services. Thank you both so much for joining us on Hello Houston today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, can AI make roads safer? We're going to find out. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Gamola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Gamola to learn more about his ride.
And you know what? Tracking all that money, where it is and what it's doing is kind of a full-time job. Good thing then there is a tool to do just that. I'm Kai Rizdal, the White House, and its affinity for state capitalism. Next time on Marketplace.
You can hear Marketplace coming up tonight. It's on at 6:30.
On Fresh Air, you'll hear revelations from well-known actors, like Zach Galifianakis on the story behind his last name.
It's actually shortened, Terry. My real last name is Galifianakisberg. That's an exclusive for your show.
Fresh Air, bringing you some of the biggest names in American culture and some of the most difficult to pronounce. Join us.
Fresh Air, weekdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7.
You can't tackle life's big challenges if you let the little ones get you down. That's why Houston Matters devotes the first Monday of each month to a sort of group moan session we call Houstonian Pet Peeves. It's a communal, cathartic experience, but not everyone can join us live at 9 a.m., and not every peeve occurs to you right then and there. That's okay. We welcome your gripes about life in Houston anytime at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Vestige Law, representing Texas businesses and startups through every stage of growth, from complex corporate structuring and contracts to business litigation. Learn more at vestige.law.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Alley Theater, celebrating its 80th year with a season honoring 8 decades of live theater, storytelling, and artistic innovation. Season information at alleytheater.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Michael Adkison and Doug Miller.
301 people died in traffic crashes in 2024, according to data from the Texas Department of Transportation, marking a record high for the city and underscoring the challenge of making Houston's streets safer. But understanding why crashes happen isn't always straightforward. Police reports contain valuable details, yet much of that information is buried in written narratives that can take years to analyze. But now, a University of Houston researcher is using artificial intelligence to connect those crash reports with roadway conditions, helping transportation officials identify dangerous stretches of road, prioritize safety improvements, and potentially prevent future crashes before they happen. Joining us now to tell us more about this research is Dr. Lou Gao, professor in the construction management program at the University of Houston. Dr. Lou, welcome to Hello Houston.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. The first question that I want to ask is, where did you get this idea? How did you connect the dots on this to say, I can use artificial intelligence to look at roadways?
That's a very good question. Safety is always a top priority for any transportation agencies. For example, Texas Department of Transportation, TxDOT. On average, I think there are around 10 people died on crash on Texas roads. So even a small improvement in terms of reducing the crash risk can potentially save lives. In the past, what we did is we tried to identify factors that are contributing to crashes, and also identify hotspots. Those are the locations that have a high frequency of crashes. But the biggest challenge is we need to build connection between data set from different sources. And those data sets are huge, millions of data points. With the help of artificial intelligence, this can really speed up the processing time. And also AI can help us connecting those missing dots together. And this really help us identify the causes behind each crash and also identify high-risk locations.
So with that, what were the high-risk locations, and what did the data find were some of the contributing factors behind that?
Here's how it works. Before we use AI, we know the relative risk of each location for example, in terms of hydroplaning. Hydroplaning is type of crash risk where the water accumulates on the surface of the pavement and the tire lose contact with the surface. So there is no friction between them, and the car are easily to get lost of control. So before we use AI, by analyzing the pavement data, we know the relative risk of pavement segments that hydroplaning could happen. But we are not 100% sure. And with the help of AI, we're able to analyze the place crash narratives. And AI help us identify those actions of the vehicle after they lose control, and also identify some hidden features that we're not able to identify before we use AI. So basically, AI help us adding another layer of evidence that we can add on top of existing risk map to significantly reduce the number of sections we need to look into.
Dr. Lu Gao, you and I have something in common. Early in my career as a police reporter, I ended up reading a lot of reports written by accident investigators, and they were usually short narratives, maybe a few sentences illustrated with some very rudimentary drawings. Now, correct me if I misunderstand, but you're trying to convert those short narratives into something more structured and something you can analyze with the help of AI. Is that right?
Exactly. What you said is correct. Some of the narratives are quite short, like a few sentences, but some of them are quite, they are probably hundreds of words. So what AI can do is AI is able to extract the information, the key information from the narrative reports, and build a connection between those features with other data set we have. For example, the pavement texture data, the road geometry data, and also the environmental data. So by connecting those different features together, we can significantly improve our confidence. Okay, this crash is mostly because of hydroplaning or some other causes.
So is there a risk that AI, when it's faced with these short reports and diagrams that are drawn up and written by officers making a number of accident scenes a night in some cases, that AI will somehow, I suppose you'd say, hallucinate and try to flesh out the narrative with erroneous details? What do you do about that?
Exactly. So I think one of the issues with AI is it sometimes can make up some stories. And so in this research, what we did is we don't depend on AI solely. So AI is just one part of the source or one part of the reasons we are going to trust. So we have our own statistical models building on other data sets other than the crash narratives. So at the end result is a combination of multiple risk scores together. So even if AI hallucinates, we still have some other data to cross verification.
Dr. Gao, I live in Montrose, and sometimes driving around Montrose feels like I'm driving off-road in the middle of the woods. That, you know, some of the roads have potholes, some of them are, the tree roots have risen to make it a hill. It can be such a nuisance just to get somewhere. To what extent is that you analyze all this pavement, all these roads? To what extent are those the result of, or excuse me, to what extent are those the cause of these traffic accidents? And if so, what features, if you will, of these roads cause the most accidents? Is it potholes? Is it hills? You know, does that make sense? I know you talked about hydroplaning.
Yes. Hydroplaning is one part of the causes, you know, of the crashes. But when you mentioned potholes, actually, based on our findings, potholes are part of the contributing factors, but potholes are not on the top factors. I think the reason is if there's a pothole, that means the pavement condition is not, especially the roughness of the pavement is not very good. So If you drive not very comfortably on this road, potentially you are going to lower your speed. So that kind of has a negative impact on the chances you're going to have a crash. So based on our research, pothole is not on the top factors. Maybe another reason for this is the roads managed by TxDOT is different from the local roads that you mentioned. And on those, the roads managed by TxDOT are those interstate highways and the state highways. For those type of roads, potholes are not very common. So that could be another reason why pothole is not on our top list. Yeah.
So let me quote to you for something that is from your paper that was recently published in an industry journal. It said that you analyzed more than 24,000 police crash reports, and you came to the conclusion, and let me quote here, strong associations between friction texture measures and wet pavement crash mechanisms. Now, I'm no engineer, but that sounds kind of interesting. Is that basically saying we need more textured roads because there is a correlation between untextured roads or less textured roads and crashes that happen on wet pavement?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The texture we're talking about, it's called macro texture. So those are the irregularities on the surface between 0.02 inches to 2 inches. So those are not like the textures we're talking about, like when you see those big patterns on the roads. We're talking about the macro level textures, and this has something to do with the material used on the pavement surface. And not only the macro texture average number, we're talking about the distribution of the textures. We find that they have some significant impact on the hydroplaning crashes. So this result might help TxDOT choosing certain type of materials when they decide to do, for example, maintenance or rehabilitation.
So what you're doing is really interesting because law enforcement agencies respond to crimes and accidents basically on a case-by-case basis for the most part. And through the years, I've talked to people who've studied the criminal justice system who say that city and county and state governments need to give law enforcement agencies the ability to dedicate more resources to crime analysis, kind of looking for patterns behind various crimes. It sounds as though you're suggesting we also need to do more analysis of patterns behind traffic accidents. Is this an understudied field?
I think you're pointing to a very important question. The biggest challenge for safety analysis, especially a road crash, is the lack of data. So we have the pavement data, we have the road data, we have the environmental data, we have the crash narrative reports. But we don't. If there was a camera there that recorded what exactly happened, then that will significantly improve the safety analysis. So I think if there is a way that can help get extra data for the researchers, I think we're able to identify more useful information to help improve the safety of our road system.
Kind of going off of that, Dr. Gao, in our final moments, I know you're a researcher, you're not a lobbyist or a civil servant, but if someone were to take your research and apply it to future considerations for roadways, what would you want them to know and to take into consideration?
I think what I would suggest is also one part of this, the conclusion of this research, is to, before the transportation agency make decisions, allocate their budget resources for road construction maintenance, before they make that decision, I think it's better they look at the safety impact, the safety implication of different choices, and to compare which one will not only improve the condition of the roads, but also improve the safety of the roads. So by putting those two into consideration at the same time.
All right. Dr. Lou Gao is a professor in the construction management program at the University of Houston. Dr. Gao, thank you so much for joining us here on Hello Houston.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very fascinating stuff. Coming up, we're going to continue to discuss more of the day's top headlines, and we're also going to take a look at Houston Restaurants Week. You may have heard a thing or two about that going on right now. We're going to be talking with Brennan Martin of Brennan's of Houston. So stay with us as the second hour of Hello Houston continues.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, presenting Ernesto Neto, Sunforce Ocean Life, an immersive exhibition exploring ecology, spirituality, and sensory awareness. The experience ends September 7th. Tickets at mfah.org.
You can watch Hello Houston on HPM Plus, free to download for smart TVs. We'll get up to around 99 today, and we do have a slight chance of an afternoon thunder shower. Clear tonight, a low near 80. It's 92. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, 3 Houston area moms sue over the 10 Commandments in schools. They say it violates Texas's own laws. We'll discuss this and more as we continue diving into the top headlines of the day. I'm Michael Adkison.
And I'm guest host Doug Miller. Houston Restaurant Weeks is upon us. We'll talk with Brennan Martin. Yes, that Brennan Martin of Brennan's of Houston, who will break down what we can expect from Houston's most hotly anticipated foodie event of the year.
Plus, Justin Schultz, president and CEO of the Houston Parks Board, will explain how the nonprofit is improving parks across the Houston area.
And of course, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Linda Kenyon. A Senate committee has advanced the nomination of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche to be confirmed to the role. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports the 12-10 vote along party lines comes as 2 key Republicans lifted their objections.
Republican Senators Tom Tillis of North Carolina and John Cornyn of Texas voted to advance Blanche's nomination after the acting attorney general rescinded a $1.8 billion fund dubbed the Anti-Weaponization Fund. Ahead of the vote, Tillis said he was satisfied with Blanche's rescindment that was put in writing.
I called the payout pot for punks. It made no sense to me, and I thought it was an insult to the police officers and the people that defended us on January the 6th. It's done.
Tillis and Cornyn, both in their final terms, held up the nomination until Blanche addressed their concerns of the fund and other provisions tied to a government settlement deal for President Trump. Blanche's nomination now heads to the full Senate floor. Claudia Grisales, NPR News.
In Spokane, Washington, 3 out-of-control wildfires are threatening thousands of homes. NPR's Kirk Siegler says fighting the fire is complicated in this city built out into pine forests.
Urban wildfires like we've seen lately, like these, like Los Angeles, like in California, you really just can't stop them. Once they're going from house to house, the structures create the fuel for rapid spread alongside all the trees and the brush. Now, one lucky thing I would say quickly is that the elite federal firefighting crews, some of them, including the incident commander, only had to travel from Oregon, where more than 1 million acres has burned so far, and they arrived in just a few hours.
The extremely dry conditions and high temperatures combined with a warm winter have made fire conditions especially treacherous. The Saudi oil company Aramco is announcing a major boost in earnings despite escalations in the Middle East and the war with Iran. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi reports.
Saudi Arabia's oil company Aramco said it earned a profit of $33.4 billion in adjusted net income in April through June. That's up from $25.2 billion in the same quarter last year. It's one of Aramco's largest quarterly profits in almost 4 years. Many oil companies have benefited from the war with Iran as it has driven energy prices up. Aramco had to find alternative ways to route its oil shipments as the war affected the Strait of Hormuz. It used pipelines on the Red Sea and exported millions of barrels of oil a day. But now the Red Sea route is at risk as Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis declared a blockade on Saudi ships. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Istanbul.
Both the Dow Jones and the S&P have hit record highs as stocks rallied after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said there could be a deal regarding the Strait of Hormuz by later in the day or tomorrow. The Dow is up more than 1,000 points. You're listening to NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gail DeLauder. A federal judge has ruled one of the key witnesses to the shooting death of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo by ICE agents can stay free for now. News 88.7's Matt Harrop has the latest.
It was shortly after Jose Trinidad Rojas Pliego was released from ICE custody that the federal government appealed the court's decision to do so. This latest ruling doesn't mean it's over, though. District Judge Keith Ellison ruled that Rojas Pliego will not be redetained while the appeal plays out in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Pliego was a passenger in the van when Salgado Araujo was fatally shot by an ICE agent in July and has disputed the government's claim that Salgado Araujo weaponized his vehicle. There are two other witnesses still in ICE detention in Conroe, which includes Salgado Araujo's brother. They have filed similar petitions for their release from detention, but there has been no updates on those cases so far. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
As Texas cracks down on Delta-8 and other hemp-derived THC products, critics warn the restrictions will push Texans to buy the products illegally. San Antonio cannabis attorney Daniel Miller said the restrictions could lead consumers to seek illegal and potentially more dangerous products.
We've pushed basically everything except edibles into the black market, and you've handed control and money back to the drug dealers.
Miller says San Antonio police will pursue felony charges and possession cases, while other Texas counties are taking a more lenient approach. The Astros continue their series against the Blue Jays tonight after pulling off a last-minute trade with Toronto. Houston sent pitcher Spencer Arrighetti to the Blue Jays in exchange for center fielder Dalton Varsho. First pitch tonight at Daikin Park is just after 7. A slight chance of rain early this evening, overnight low around 80 degrees. For tomorrow, we're expecting a high close to 97. I'm Gail DeLauder, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, investing in creative thinkers and problem solvers who help people, communities, and the planet flourish. More information is available at hewlett.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston. Ernie Manouche is out for the week. I am Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison filling in, and joining me in the guest host seat is Doug Miller.
Good to be here.
Houston journalism veteran. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be back on the campus.
Yeah, I felt like we had a good first hour. I feel like we can do this. We can we can be without Ernie for the week.
We'll make our way through it. Yeah.
No, we had a great first hour talking about flock cameras as well as the recent Supreme Court decision. You can go back and listen to that on our YouTube page. But we've got a good second hour coming up. We're going to be talking with Alex Brennan Martin, the owner of Brennan's of Houston, to talk a little about Houston Restaurant Week and what you can expect and the good deals that you can find and what we should be doing this week. So looking forward to that one. But first, we're going to start back up with the headlines with Doug.
Well, when Houston ISD students return to school on Monday, it could be the first time they will see the Ten Commandments displayed in classrooms. HISD has been embroiled in litigation over a new Texas law requiring schools to display donated copies of the commandments, and a federal appeals court upheld the law last spring. Now, 3 mothers in the Houston area are trying a different tactic to block the 2025 law. Instead of arguing that the law violates the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, they argue that it violates state law in Texas. Those 3 mothers are suing the state as well as HISD and the Cy-Fair ISD and Spring Branch ISD. In 1999, the Texas legislature passed a bill signed into law by then-Governor George W. Bush prohibiting the state government from, quoting here, substantially burdening a person's free exercise of religion, end quote. That provision is known as the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and it has been cited as recently as 2021 when Attorney General Ken Paxton used it as evidence that governments could not close places of worship during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, school kids in public schools may be seeing the 10 Commandments displayed on walls as early as next week. What are your thoughts on that subject? What are your thoughts about this argument being forwarded by these 3 Houston mothers that it violates not necessarily the Constitution, but Texas state law? Call us or text us at 713-440-8870. I never thought I'd see this day.
I know. Here we are. It I think speaks to this urge by conservative Americans, but I think Americans in general. I don't think it necessarily falls to one ideology or another to go back to an easier time, a better time, what have you, when it was more acceptable to pray in schools and have the 10 Commandments in classrooms. And this was one of the most talked about policies that came out of the most recent legislative session. And I think it's notable that we are now almost I guess we're a couple years removed from that session, a year and a half or so, and we're still litigating it. We're still coming up with new legal arguments. This one is interesting, I think, that their argument is that the other lawsuits have been in federal courts, that it's federal law, the U.S. Constitution that prohibits it. This lawsuit says it's also in Texas law, that when Texas has a Freedom of Religion Act that needs to be adhered.
I would be interested in hearing from anyone who is old enough to remember when there was prayer in public schools before the Supreme Court decision that was forced to the courts by Madalyn Murray O'Hair way back when. I went to Catholic schools for a couple of years. Strangely enough, we didn't have the 10 Commandments hanging on the wall in our school, but I don't recall. I'm not old enough to remember when there was prayer in public schools there. I must say, though, I have, as a reporter, attended a couple of events at schools, in public schools, after tragedies would happen, where the students would be led in prayer. I remember one incident in particular when the picture of Jesus was put in front of the school. And, I asked a question about it. Nobody raised a fuss over it. So it's out there. There are a lot of folks that think that even when school prayer was a no-no, that somehow, well, that's a technicality. We know that's not really the law. There was really a sense of that in some of the schools that I visited as a reporter.
Sure. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, I reported on this on Friday when the lawsuit first came down, and I spoke with one of the mothers who is suing, and one of the things that really stuck out to me is yes, she is opposed to the lack of freedom of religion from her perspective, that her family is not devoutly Christian, and she did not think it was appropriate for that. But I also thought it was interesting. She said even the subject matter of the 10 Commandments was not something that she wanted a kindergartner or first grader to see. And that's been an argument we have heard from some people, and the counter has been, well, it's the 10 Commandments. It's a set of rules that we should follow. But one of the specific commandments that I thought was really interesting that one of the mothers cited to me was, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his cattle, nor anything that is thy neighbor's, which, is you shouldn't covet. But to her perspective was, this is basically bringing notice to what were effectively slaves, that there's this discussion about manservants and maidservants, which were slaves back in that time that the 10 Commandments were first written. And she said that wasn't the place of public schools to be talking about from such a young age, that she didn't want her kids to have to think about manservants and maidservants, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, Daddy, what's adultery? Yeah, that's the problem.
There was that TikTok that the James Tallarico campaign put out of when they were debating this on a Saturday, and James Tallarico gets to the back microphone in the House floor, and he says, "Do you remember the commandment about keeping the Sabbath? And what day is it today? It's a Saturday." I know that one did a lot of numbers on TikTok.
that really, it's we'll see what happens next week. I don't envy the teachers. I mean, it puts people in our public schools in a very awkward place.
Yeah.
It puts them in the awkward place of having to bridge the divide on this controversy. It's just a bad place to put our teachers in, I think. Yeah.
My mom's a teacher, and we were talking about this over the weekend, and she's one of the few teachers that is returning back to the classroom. She actually had been more on the administrative side and has decided that she wants to get back in. And we were talking about, we're religious, and we were talking about the how you balance all of this, that now Texas is moving towards having a curriculum that includes religious readings, both in the Bluebonnet that has already been passed, and now I believe it's 2030 is the year that Texas is going to start having a required reading list that includes stories from the Bible. And, it's to your point about teachers, it is a discussion to be had. 713-440 is the number to call. Excuse me, I didn't finish that number. 713-440-8870. We have a call from Nelson from Cypress. Nelson, what are your thoughts on the Ten Commandments in classrooms?
Well, you asked to talk to someone who's old enough to remember when we had prayer in school. I'm the guy.
Is that right?
Old enough to remember that. Yes, sir.
So how did this work? Did the teachers stand up in front of the class and lead you all in saying the Lord's Prayer, or what?
Well, I went to different schools, and different schools did different ways. Sometimes they would have, I think the most common way was a child would go up to the office, prearranged, and over the loudspeaker to all the classrooms say a prayer that would be transmitted to all the classrooms. But one thing that I do remember, my sixth grade teacher started class every morning by reciting from a psalm that says, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be totally acceptable to thee, my Lord and my God."
And you remember it to this day, don't you?
Yeah, because I heard it every day, for a year there that was with her, but, it sure didn't hurt me.
Yeah, right. I got to tell you something. Now that you mention it, I recall that there was one student in my junior high school in Beaumont who, for religious reasons, would not participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. So every day before we did the Pledge of Allegiance, he was dispatched to the principal's office, where he sat in the principal's office until the Pledge of Allegiance was over with. And to me personally, I felt sorry for the kid, because it put him in an awkward spot. His parents wouldn't let him stay in the classroom for the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know how he felt about it, but I know he felt kind of silly having to leave the classroom every day for that.
Yeah, and it was probably like you say, his parents' wishes, not his own. And as far as the Ten Commandments being in school, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think that it should be pushed. But the Ten Commandments are actually not Christian; they're Jewish. The Ten Commandments predate Christianity by a couple of thousand years.
That's certainly true. Nelson from Cypress, thank you so much for your comment on to Hello Houston and sharing your thoughts with us. 713-440-8870 is the phone number to call. Vivian is in from Northside Houston. Vivian, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. Welcome to you.
Yeah. Well, tell us your thoughts on the Ten Commandments in this lawsuit.
Yes. Well, I grew up in Houston in the 1950s, where not only did we have to say the Pledge of Allegiance, but we were also led in the Lord's Prayer. We also were given Gideon Bibles. We also were not allowed to take off as a Jew. Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year, and they would always give tests on that day that you were not allowed to make up. So you had a choice between religion or your grade.
Did your parents ever say anything to anybody at the school about this?
Yes, but there was nothing they can do. I grew up in Sharpstown, which was basically white Christians, and it was just accepted at the time. They actually fought that for years and years and years, and finally, by the time I was in high school, we were allowed to take off for that day and make up the test. But it wasn't until then.
So do you think the scheduling of this test was intentionally placed, scheduled in such a way to discriminate against Jewish students?
Absolutely, 100%, no doubt, because it was the most important test of the year, and they wouldn't let you make it up.
Wow.
Wow. Well, thanks for reminding us about a bygone era.
Yeah. Lee, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and coming on to Hello Houston. Vivian, we've got another call coming in from Lee from Montrose, 713-440-8870. Lee, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. My comment about this whole thing, it's, to me, absolutely wrong. In this country, we push Christianity and ignore and try to divide people from other religions. I believe it's just another form of discrimination. You know, I'm half Jewish. I don't practice any religion, but we have now like anti-Semite laws. How about anti-Muslim? Why do we segregate and continue dividing people? The Ten Commandments for those who aren't Christians is such a slap in the face and disrespectful. And look at our Dan Patrick. I mean, what a hypocrite. Openly cheating on his wife. Socrates said, religion, most people are born with knowing what's right and wrong.
It sounded that you were saying that about Dan Patrick. I believe you were thinking of Ken Paxton.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of Paxton there.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't stand both of them. I always get those two. They're two in the same almost.
All good. And just to clarify, it sounded like you were talking about the laws that we have being anti-Semite. It sounds like you were describing protections for Jewish people like, against anti-Semitic policies, and you were wanting protection against anti-Muslim discrimination. Is that correct?
Correct.
Gotcha.
We classify everyone who's Muslim as a terrorist. Anybody of color, this country is just right now. It is shameful. It's embarrassing. It's disgraceful. It's dehumanizing.
Lee, thank you so much for your time. 713-440-8870. Sam is on the line from Katy. Sam, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you for taking my call. Actually, I have 3 kids who graduated from Katy High School, Cinco Ranch or Katy ISD. And over there, the board is also pushing the state-mandated religious studies, which we strongly believe as a family that it would actually lead to bullying and discrimination on so many different levels, And currently, if you are religious, there are groups in high schools or middle schools who get together and they do their own prayer during the break session, or if they have one of the school period or class period where there's not something going on, they have dedicated time already. Anybody who wanted to participate in it, they participate in it. But right now we're getting this religious, state-enforced religion being shoved down our throat. And nothing can be changed till they don't see this kind of changes, not just in the city. In the city, they can understand that there has to be diverse. But till we don't go out in the country, out in small town, and get the message across, this will not change. Thank you.
Yeah, Sam, to your point, one thought that I had is there was another bill that came out the very same session that SB 10, the 10 Commandments law, came out, that codified the right to schools to have a prayer period if students wanted that. But it was not a requirement to have a prayer period. It essentially said that a school can't infringe on the right to have a prayer period. By contrast to the 10 Commandments law, that's a requirement. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to have the 10 Commandments on that. If it's donated, essentially, you have to display those. And it sounds like that's kind of one of your concerns is that there's no choice. There's no option in all of this. Is that fair to say?
Wasn't initially it was that it was open to not just 10 Commandments, it was open to all the religion. But when the people from the mosque started they say, if that's going to be it, that you can display any of the religion. It just are not limited to 10 commandments. And they said, hey, we can put our Islamic laws and show them exactly what they are. And at once there was such a strong feedback and pushback from state officials. No, that is not going to be allowed. Only 10 commandments are going to be allowed. So it's got state mandated. The discrimination actually starts from the very beginning inherently.
It would be interesting if schools were required to post some sort of explanation of what Sharia law is in a time when so many people don't really understand what that term means.
We don't. Sharia law actually brings rights to what your rights are as a female, as a male. If you do something wrong, then how you're going to be punished, or at the same time that you cannot accept interest or, just basic general understanding. And then people will realize that, wow, these are simple rules,
Sam, thank you so much for calling into Hello Houston. We appreciate your time. 713-440-8870. That's the phone number to call. Carrie is on from Katy. Carrie, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate your time. Tell us a little about your thoughts on the 10 Commandments.
Well, I have been in a school in the past year and seen what is posted. And first of all, it's not the 10 Commandments as I saw them or learned them, but that's, differences in different Bibles, I'm sure. The thing for me is with the prayer in school idea, it sounds really good to a lot of people, but I'm not a Christian. And as a child, through 5th grade until they knocked down that law, I was required to stand up every morning for the Lord's Prayer. And when I chose just to keep my mouth closed because that is not a prayer of my faith, I was verbally berated by teachers over the years multiple times. It's not something that you should ever do to any child or any person. And, I just don't understand why the quote-unquote majority thinks that they should no longer protect the minorities in this country, which is what it was founded on.
Carrie, thank you so much for calling in and letting us know your thoughts. We appreciate it.
Interesting.
Quite the conversation. Lots of people weighing in on the 10 Commandments. I know it's such a talker. We've got a big show ahead of us, so we're going to wrap things up. Coming up on Hello Houston, we're going to talk with Alex Brennan Martin, the owner of Brennan's in Houston, about Houston Restaurants Week. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
If we take polls at face value, it feels like Democratic voters in Michigan are ready to challenge this conventional notion that the more moderate candidate is, by definition, the more electable candidate. And polls show the momentum with El Sayed more than Stevens.
I'm Michael Barbaro. That's Today on The Daily from The New York Times.
You can listen to The Daily coming up tonight at 7 o'clock.
HPM Plus brings you the latest news and information from around the world and across the street. Trusted journalists keeping you connected by keeping you informed. Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs and stay informed.
Support comes from CenterPoint Energy, who has installed 69,000 storm-resilient poles and trimmed vegetation for more than 11,500 miles of power lines, all part of their plan to build a more resilient coastal grid for the hurricane season.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, offering electricity plans backed by 100% renewable energy for Texas homes and businesses. Learn more about renewable energy options at chariotenergy.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. With over 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Michael Adkison and Doug Miller.
Houston Restaurants Week is back. The month-long event is going to give local diners the chance to enjoy special prix-fixe meals at hundreds of restaurants while helping fight hunger across our community. The annual event began this past Saturday and runs through September 7th, with participating restaurants donating a portion of every Houston Restaurants Week meal to the Houston Food Bank. So joining us now is Brennan Martin, the owner of Brennan's of Houston, as well as Carl Walker, the chef there. They are participating, one of the many restaurants that are participating in the Houston Restaurants Week, and they're going to tell us why it's such an important tradition and what's going on this week. Thank you so much for being here on Hello Houston.
Happy to do it.
All right.
Love it. Thank you. And thanks for bringing food. If you're listening on the radio, you can't see this, folks. Full disclosure, it's bribery time. They brought all kinds of goodies into the studio for us today.
We're not above that.
Exactly.
I mean, tell us a little bit. You brought in all these goodies. Tell us about what's sitting in front of us and making my mouth water.
Well, I guess one of the best things about restaurant weeks is you get to try a lot of places, not at full price, right? At the same time, while doing good for the community by supporting the Greater Houston Food Bank. So we just have a few of our traditional. I think it's great when people come to Brennan's, they haven't been. Our reputation, we've been around a little while. They know we sell turtle soup. So there it is right there. Yes, the answer to the question is yes, it is made with real turtle.
Yeah.
And it's a classic that's been on our menu forever. We've got a little shrimp remoulade, another New Orleans dish. We have our own twist on it a little bit. And this is a newer dish. This is a
citrus glazed salmon on a corn mock shoe, which is a kind of another way of saying like cream corn.
Yeah.
But this would be your Cajun Creole version of a cream corn.
Wow.
And of course, I'm sorry.
Some okra around that.
And of course, we brought pralines. So,
you have to. We would have been disappointed if you didn't. No,
I bring pralines with me when I go to Costco. So it's just we have to bring it.
No, and I was going to say, if you're listening to the radio, you can't see this yummy food. So if you can and you're able, head to YouTube, go to our live stream, HoustonPublicMedia.org, click on that, and you can see all of this yummy food. It looks exceptional. So these are all things that people can order for Houston Restaurants
Week.
are
on the Houston Restaurant Week's menu.
Wow.
So I come in, I get a prefix. What do I get for how much?
Well, it depends on what meal period. For brunch and lunch, it's 2 courses.
Yeah.
And an appetizer and entree. If you order a dessert, it's additional to that. At lunch, it's a 3-course menu. It's an appetizer, entree, and dessert.
All right. Okay. Very good. So now refresh my memory on something. Wasn't Houston Restaurant Weeks originally Houston Restaurant Week?
Yeah, I was there. Clever Lee Stone, who's was just a force of nature if you knew her, and even if you didn't. She was, we started talking about, what to do during the annual Houston summer evacuation.
Right.
And, such a hard time on restaurants. And she was a big supporter of the food bank, which we were as well. But we were trying to figure out how it could all be melded together. She talked with a handful of us. And, I think there was maybe a half dozen, maybe 10 of us the first year, and which was 20 years ago now. And it just started building, and we were building over 300 restaurants this year.
And so I've heard speculation on these very airwaves earlier this morning that it actually might be extended beyond its current window.
I don't think so.
You think
I
really?
don't think so. If it is, that's news I haven't heard, but I really don't think so.
Is it
the
going
extensions came naturally over time. One year we had a hurricane right in the middle, and so we extended it a few weeks, and then that sort of stuck, and then it was like, well, we're so close to Labor Day, why not go through Labor Day? And I think it all was all very natural evolution.
So at some point it could become Houston Restaurant Month, it sounds like. Huh?
We just put an S on the end of it. Houston Restaurant Week.
So put it into perspective for me, something like this, how much of your annual revenue is coming from this month alone, these weeks alone, or how significant, I suppose, is the bigger question, the broader question about
It's taken August from a month that we would typically be quite slow to one that we're quite busy. Of course, we're selling at a discount. That brings our revenue down. And then, of course, we're doing a donation, which we're happy to do, but that takes away from the profitability of it as well. But look, it's great for the restaurant community at large. It's great for servers. It's great for our suppliers. It's great for our whole ecosystem.
It's an economic lifeline, in effect, for the industry, right?
It really is. It really is. And in recognition of that, the Katie and the folks running Restaurant Weeks made the decision to reduce the donation to restaurants last year and have continued with it this year. And that's been a real boon to a lot of folks that really needed the extra income during, it's been a tough time since COVID.
Right.
It's just changed the deal for a lot of restaurants.
So explain that if you could. It used to be the donation was how much? Some restaurants said we can't afford that, and so you lowered it to what? What is it now?
Well, it's for us at the $55 dinner level, it's down to $5 from $7. At the brunch and lunch, it's $3, 2 and 3, 2 at lunch and 3 at brunch. I think I've got that right. Down $1 each, and or maybe maybe more than $1 for one of them. But at any rate, it's down to 2, 3, and 5 donation.
Yeah, for each dish. Is that right?
No, for each meal served.
Each meal served. Okay.
Right.
Chef, you were going to say?
No, it is for each meal served, depending on the meal period. But it's it's not. I said it's the only thing when I talk to people. I said it's the only thing after COVID that hasn't. When you look at the overall price, that the price hasn't increased.
Wow.
So we have. To be fair, they've kept the overall price the same, even though to help restaurants out, they've lowered some of those donations back.
Now, I understand some restaurants this year have decided not to participate. They thought the donation, you had to make an initial donation to participate of $1,000, and some places said, we just can't afford that, so they're kind of going off on their own.
Well, knowing Cleverly and her daughter Katie, who's been running it these past several years, one of the things they struggled with was getting paid. Getting the payment so they could make the donation. And that was a real struggle for a number of years. And so they made the change to the amount of money up front. Now, also, Cleverly was financing most of this out of her pocket for much longer than she should have. And so that has changed. That just had to change. There was no other way about it. They do a great job of getting in-kind donations. They get people that support. But still, the price of everything is going only one way, and to be able to keep the event running, they had to gather some more revenue.
So that offset the cost of promotion and everything.
That's the idea behind it. And look, if folks are going to participate. Well, I don't want to go there, but you've got to, yes, we're serious about this, and here's a way that we can demonstrate that we're serious about fully participating.
Right. Yeah, and to the point, we've heard over and over again, and I know this station has done quite a bit of reporting that restaurants, it's a hard time to run a restaurant right now. The Texas Restaurant Association has said that between concerns over prices of beef and when there was the threat of tariffs, everything going on, that it was just making it harder and harder to run a restaurant. That something like this, it seems like, really can rally the ecosystem together, as you were talking about.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt but that. I mean, we've been at this pretty much the same amount of time. This may be one of the tougher times that we've experienced in our career, and that goes back to the '80s bust and Enron and whatnot. We always seem to rally back, but this time seems a little bit different, and we're doing fine. But an awful lot of folks can't quite say that. And restaurants, and so it is a struggle. Look, just in your own life, the cost of your internet provider, the cost of fuel, the cost of insurance, cost of all those things go into the cost of that bowl of turtle soup right there. We've got to be able to spread our cost all the way around, and it's more and more difficult to do so.
So, Chef Walker, I want to ask you about something. Every restaurant participating, there's someone like you who's in the position of saying, I have to design a prefix menu that will be affordable, somehow will be a bargain, but still upholds the standards of the restaurant. In your case, you've got the turtle soup; it's wonderful. Everyone and so on. Is it tough to come up with those prefix menus?
It's tough as you were kind of leading to the overall cost and making it a profitable time, as Alex just spoke a little bit about the profit. It's great for vendors. It's great for a lot of things, but to run the overall profit for the restaurant, it is a very, tiny edge to try to make something from that, not be in the losing side of it. So I think that's part of the reason why you see some restaurants that don't necessarily want to participate or hold back a little bit. But I kind of consider the menu part as a challenge. It's a lot of fun. Now, in our case, Brennan's been around for a long time, so there's just some things that we feel that we need to put out there. Turtle soup, remoulade, things like this. These are classics that have been around. Eggs Benedict at brunch, what have you. They've been around for a long time, and so we have I don't say an obligation, but we have somewhat, just a expectation
right.
of having those items on there, because people that don't get a chance to go out multiple times a year are taking this opportunity to come to Brennan's, and we want them to have some of these classics. So, we just take a smaller cut.
Brennan's without turtle soup would be like 31 flavors without chocolate and vanilla.
Exactly. So, there you go.
I sometimes say if it wasn't on the menu, it wouldn't be safe to go in the dining room.
That's right.
Talking about what's in the dining room, we got a comment from our YouTube that I have to read to you guys. Sean Radigan writes, I'm going to Brennan's next week to celebrate my buddy's divorce. What should we order?
A good scotch. Sean asked for me. I'll be happy to buy you guys a scotch. Carl and I understand that dynamic. We've been there. Yeah, no. Come on, just come on in. We look forward to having you. We got some fun stuff on the menu.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the prefix menu.
Okay. Well, Carl. On the prefix menu?
Yes.
Well,
what can we expect for Houston Restaurants Weeks? How about that?
Well, you got a variety of different appetizers. We have a couple of soups. We got turtle soup. We got a gumbo yaya, which is our chicken and sausage gumbo, shrimp remoulade. We have a tomato and blue cheese salad with hearts of palm and cucumber ribbons. We have several different appetizers. Entree-wise, like we have the salmon. We have a pork chop. We also have a couple of other items that we put on with a slight additional charge for those items, but they still meet in the restaurant weeks. So if somebody is looking for a filet, they can get that too. Or if they're looking for another classic at Brennan's, our Gulf fish pontchartrain or fishborn, they can also order those items with a slight increase to that charge. But so we have a lot of things, and then we do have on dinner, because you get dessert, you got bananas Foster, bread pudding, all the great desserts, lemon meringue pie, all those things that we have. And then for lunch, just so that we don't increase your costs, we do have some items in dessert that are just with slight, we call it kind of a bite of. So we do a very small bread pudding or a small praline parfait, and some things like that, just to give you to be able to get a taste of dessert but if it's lunch and you're trying to not go overboard with your calories.
You left off one dish I love. I'm from New Orleans and grew up whenever you had gatherings. Shrimp Creole was always one of our big feed dishes. In addition, so we're doing a what we call a Haute Creole sauce, a little more time and attention and technique to the sauce, and doing it over pasta, which we did for the first time last year. This guy's been on me for a number of years. I kept saying people aren't coming to an Italian restaurant. They're coming to, who's going to eat pasta at Brennan's? Well, it was like our number 2 seller last year. So learn my lesson. What
Alex,
do I know?
You said from New Orleans made me think that you were going to lead off with yakame.
Oh, well, that's another one. We're doing at brunch and lunch, yakame, which is a dish. It is like pho. It is like a ramen, but it was a New Orleans tradition, and the nickname for it is Old Sober. And it served at a lot of joints, neighborhood joints and bars. To this day, it is. And it was kind of something growing up in New Orleans, you just kind of knew about it, but it really wasn't a visitor thing. Mm-hmm. And it's really, I guess, with the popularity of ramen and what pho and whatnot catching on, people have caught on about it. And so we put yakame on the menu last year, and it just on the brunch and lunch. And it's just going crazy and during that time, and people really enjoy it. Now, my mom, Ella Brennan, is rolling over in her grave that we've got, a dish from a New Orleans dive bars, on the menu of the restaurant. But, I guess when I get there, she'll beat on me something.
Right. I've got a picture in mind right now. I know there are people sitting out there in line at fast food restaurants going, what the heck am I doing eating this junk right now?
Well, you at $25, when you can easily get close to that when you're in a fast food restaurant. By the time you check out, you're like, whoa, it's like.
And we just expanded our bar, which is that we do not have the dress requirements. And so, if folks want to come more casual, we have a lot more room in the bar. And, drop in at lunch. And like Carl said, for, $25, you got to struggle to get out of some of the, if not fast food, Beck's Prime. I bet it's pretty. And I love Beck's. Don't get me wrong. They do a great burger. I'm not.
So the restaurant business is notoriously fickle. I know friends of mine have owned restaurants who say that you don't know. For some reason, you walk out, and for some reason, the dining room is almost empty, and you just can't figure it out. And you call to your other friends at other restaurants. They say the same thing. They're a cycle. Is this time of year, restaurant weeks, do you walk out and is it full? Are you always busy? Is it busier than usual?
Yes, we are much busier than usual. July to August, it's a crazy number. Now, if you come, Monday lunch, we won't be as busy as we will be, Friday, Saturday dinner and whatnot. But yeah, we stay quite busy, and during restaurant weeks, and it is a lot of fun to see folks that are coming out and they'll, hey, we're here because of restaurant weeks. Mm-hmm. And that's something we really enjoy. We get to visit with and our staff is a big part of making it special for these folks as well. Yes, we're selling it at a discount, but they're going to make sure that you get the experience that you want. They have bought into the spirit of Restaurant Weeks a long time ago.
Yeah. In these final seconds, to the person who's in a fast food line, what are your tips and recommendations for Houston Restaurants Week, other than come to Brennan's? But what would you want them to know?
3300 Smith Street, Houston, Texas.
Right.
No. Look, go to the website. It is really much more user friendly this year. You don't have to search all 300 plus menus. You can type in the type of food or a particular dish, or type it in, and the website does the work for you. It's really cool. And so, take advantage of that resource, because you'll find a lot of great places you might not have tried otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Awesome. We'll have to take advantage. We appreciate you guys coming on. Alex Brennan Martin is the owner of Brennan's of Houston, and Carl Walker is a chef there. You can try Houston Restaurants Week prefix there through September 7th. Thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Stick around. Coming up, we are looking at improvements to parks around Houston. Stay with us for the rest of Hello Houston.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
You can hear it this afternoon. It starts at 3 o'clock.
As she publishes her 20th book, Anne Lamott still finds writing just hard.
I mean, the American way is that you should always know what you're doing. You've made a decision and you should stick with it. No writer that I've ever met or read knows what they're doing until they've done it.
Best-selling author Anne Lamott. That's next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour tonight, 10 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from Collaborative for Children, presenting the Building Blocks Luncheon, Thursday, September 24th. The event highlights early childhood education and its impact on children, families, and the greater Houston community. Tables available at collabforchildren.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Central Market, featuring summer fruit for snacks and entertaining with a variety of melons, plus stone fruits like plum cots, cherries, and peaches. More at centralmarket.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt. Support comes from UT's Center for Professional Education, helping to guide professional growth every step of the way, with courses designed to improve professional skills, earn credentials, and make a career change. Details at professionaled.utexas.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Michael Adkison and Doug Miller.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. In case you missed it, we just had Houston Restaurants Week on, and if you're watching the live stream, they left us with these wonderful chef's hats.
Yeah.
And they left us. They took the food, and we were like, "Well, that looks so tempting."
Well, now that the staff is outside eating all the food, we're stuck here. I managed to steal a praline.
Nice,
good.
Well, we are about to talk with folks from Houston Parks in the area. One thing that we did want to point out is earlier in the show, we did ask in our YouTube about flock cameras. We were talking about flock cameras and the safety and security concerns. We put it to our YouTubers, as I know Ernie likes to call them. Do flock cameras make communities safer or raise too many privacy concerns? 55% said too much surveillance, 27% said depends on how they're used, and 18% say they make us safer. We talked a lot about the sort of dichotomy and the balance between all of that, but I think it's notable that a third of people said, hey, depends on how they're used. That's kind of what we were getting at.
I think opponents are probably more passionate about their opposition. People who are for them probably don't really think much about them. I mean, unless you're a cop. If you're in law enforcement, you're a little more passionate about it, I think.
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of reason for people to be flock cameras in the same way that people are against them. You know?
Yeah. And as we start talking about parks, we were also talking about the Houston Astros.
Speaking
and
of parks,
I know.
I want to. This one's on
Park.
this one is on my plate for today because
I was Minute Maid. I'm getting my facts out of order.
Yeah.
Minute Maid.
So the Houston Astros, first place in their division, of course, they acquired the center fielder Dalton Varsho from the Toronto Blue Jays on Monday, trading him for starting pitcher Spencer Arrighetti. Yes, you heard that right. After switching clubhouses in Houston, Varsho was sent to be available for the AL West leaders in their Monday game, Monday night against Toronto. The reason I want to talk about this, I don't get it. I'm an Astros fan. I just do not understand this trade. And I think poor Spencer Arrighetti. Here's a guy, newlywed, just had twins. He's got to call his wife up yesterday and say, honey, we got to move to Canada. The kid grew up in Katy, and he's got to move. Yeah, I don't know. That one's. I got a little burr up my rear about that one, but all right.
Leave us a comment and let us know what you think of all this, or shoot us a text. I know we're wrapping up the show, but please shoot us a text and let us know your thoughts on that trade. 713-440-8870.
So we're talking about ballparks, but we're also talking here about neighborhood parks. Neighborhood parks are more than just green spaces. They're places where families gather, where kids play, neighbors come together to enjoy the outdoors. Well, a new initiative called Let's Play Houston is bringing major improvements to 25 neighborhood parks across our city through a public-private partnership with a focus on creating safer, more welcoming spaces for communities around Houston. Well, joining us to talk about this project, the community input helping shape these upgrades and what it means for Houstonians who love the outdoors, is Justin Schultz. He is the president and the CEO of the Houston Parks Board. Justin, welcome to Hello Houston. Good to have you here.
Good morning, y'all.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here, too. And tell us, Let's Play Houston. I hear this automatically. I just think, they're going to put some new swing sets in parks. It's a lot more than that. What's going on?
It is a lot more than that. So Houston has about 180 neighborhood parks. Those are the parks that people go to the most frequently. I mean, I love going and running at Memorial Park or Herman Park, but the neighborhood parks that are embedded in all of the communities around Houston are the ones that people are going to go to, walk their dog, to go for a picnic on Sunday. And those are often the parks that just don't get the love because they're a little bit under the radar. So we're doing this initiative, Houston Parks Board, which is a nonprofit that's been around for 50 years working to improve and green Houston. We're working with the City of Houston, the Houston Parks and Recreation Department, and a whole host of corporate and philanthropic supporters to upgrade 25 parks in Houston. Everything from new swing sets, very important, new playgrounds, walking trails, and a lot of shade.
Shade, important. We're thinking about that these days. So your selection process for these 25 parks, tell us about that. You're rather precise about that. You had to analyze where these things were. There were political considerations and so on. How did you pick the 25 parks?
Yeah, so I'm a recovering consultant, so I really like analysis and data. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at is where were the communities that were most in need around Houston? And the Centers for Disease Control developed a metric a number of years ago called the Social Vulnerability Index. And it really takes about 20 different socioeconomic indicators and collapses it into a single number. And so it's ranking every census block from the most vulnerable to not vulnerable at all. And we looked at that. We looked at that across the 180 different neighborhood parks, and we said, where are the areas that are most chronically underinvested in, that need the most help? And that's really what guided us.
To that point, I think that quality of life improvements like parks, it's one of those things that the stereotype is, oh, we need some money and take it out of the parks. They don't need it. It's just quality of life and that sort of thing. What does having an improved park in those most vulnerable communities do for the community? What sort of are the improvements that we see in that community afterward?
Yeah, I mean, parks, as I think most people inherently know, but to your point, often sort of think of as a nice to have, parks are incredibly important social infrastructure. I mean, this is where community is, built and continues to be built over generations and generations. And so, we know that parks are good for your health and well-being. Exercise is obviously very important, but it's also incredibly important for the social cohesion of our communities. We live in a very online world. And parks are one of the few places today where people of different backgrounds can actually come together to be one. And that's what's so exciting about Houston and this program, is that we get to make those free public spaces better for everyone.
As you mentioned before, everyone in Houston knows about Memorial Park, Herman Park, Buffalo Bayou Park, but people don't know about the little parks in little neighborhoods that you wouldn't know about unless you live in the neighborhood, have to be driving through it. Tell us about perhaps just one or two of them, parks that you've selected for this, and what's going to happen inside those parks. What will the people in the neighborhood see?
So I think a great park to highlight is Trinity Gardens Park, which is in Northeast Houston, right next door to Kashmir High School. It's a park that's been around for a long time, and the community's used it for a long time. But it was in such disrepair that portions of the park actually had to be fenced off by the city because there just wasn't the funding to make these improvements to have it be a safe park. Because Kashmir High School is across the street and Kashmir High School has a great musical tradition there, we're incorporating into some of the site elements, musical elements. We want to make sure that there's infrastructure for all ages and all abilities. So all of these 25 parks will get new playgrounds, but they're not just regular playgrounds. They're playgrounds that have inclusive and accessible features. So regardless of what your physical ability, you can use and enjoy these parks.
Wow. Talk about the features a little bit more. You mentioned the shade structures. Obviously, as we joked, that's top of mind these days if you step outside and it's 105 degrees or what have you. What do the shade structures look like at these parks, and how well do they work?
So we did about 70 community meetings as part of this program to really understand what the communities around these parks wanted. And the three things that we heard most frequently were, we want new playgrounds, we want shade, and we want better security lighting. So all of the parks have that. The shade is in different forms. Sometimes it's covering a basketball pavilion. Other times it's just for a picnic shelter. And sometimes it's for both. But all of the parks have shade elements. All of the playgrounds also have shade. Because one of the problems is you may have this great playground, but if you're in that 105-degree weather, you can't use it from April to October. So we want to make sure not only are these available for everyone to use, but for 365 days a year.
I think everyone remembers the trauma of stepping into the slide and it's 110 degrees and your skin gets burned.
No metal slides.
I still have scars for that. I don't think about it. So it's a public-private partnership. How much money are we talking about here, and how much is going to be public money? How much is going to be private money? Where's it coming from?
So we'll invest about $60 million across these 25 parks. To put that in context, that is the largest investment in neighborhood parks in the city of Houston's history.
Wow.
We're getting the funding from any place that we can find it, but the city contributed $11 million, largely from the open space ordinance funds, which is why that is so important. The state of Texas, we have $8 million from various state representatives, which is incredible. And then the Houston Parks Board is responsible for raising much of the rest of it. And we've gotten great support from the Houston Endowment, Perry Homes, and a number of other corporations and philanthropic entities.
In 25 parks, what's the timeline on when we're going to be able to take advantage?
The team is working hard. We will start construction on the first projects this fall.
Wow.
And all of them will be done by the end of 2028.
Gotcha.
That's pretty tight. That's a rather tight timeline.
We have about 50 active projects at the Houston Parks Board right now, and these are 25 of them. We like to keep ourselves busy.
And take advantage. I mean, so many people love the parks in Houston, and so many people, I think everyone has a great memory of going to Memorial Park or Herman Park, but it is those local parks that make such a huge difference. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, making that investment, I think, is so integral to the Houston Parks Department and the Parks Board of all that goes through. So Justin Schultz is the president and CEO of the Houston Parks Board. Justin, thank you so much for joining us here on Hello Houston today.
Thanks, y'all.
And I want to say a special thank you to Doug Miller for filling in the guest host seat as
My
we
pleasure.
are down a proper host. It's two guest hosts filling in, so appreciate your time, and we'll see you back here later this week.
Good to visit with you.
All right, and that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching and listening to Hello Houston. We're going to be back tomorrow with more of all these conversations that you love to hear, so thank you for joining us. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, offering customers electricity plans that match their energy use schedules and lifestyles. All plans